Welcome back to the How to Start a Cannabis Farm podcast. My name is Jared, and I'm your host. This time again, we have Golden Hill Grower back with us, and we will be discussing the future of breeding. So, right now...
Let's get your condoms out.
Yeah. Get ready, boys. Get ready.
Just kidding.
So... with cannabis where it is right now, and basically with the legalization happening almost worldwide, it seems that over here on the West Coast, and I guess in parts of Europe, they've definitely been the forefront of cannabis breeding. And my biggest question is, people are pushing 30% THC. I think, was it in like 2017? I saw it the other day, like the highest was 34%. The 2017 high times, whatever. Do you think that we need 40%?
Of course. Of course. God damn it. We always need more. We're Americans. America.
Oh,
No, that's a good question. I have no idea. We don't know if it's going to help improve medicinal benefits or if it's going to make actual... go the opposite way and actually start hurting us and actually have bad qualities to it. We don't know this. We will eventually.
Get the data at some point.
Yep. So that's a good question.
Well, I know a lot of people are, THC is responsible for not just like a synergistic effect, but a lot of the cerebral effects, things like anxiety and paranoia. And so that's why a lot of these lower THC strains, and specifically a lot of high CBD stuff, like hemp, where the ratios are fantastic. They're like 20-1 CBD or 40-1 CBD. Those produce a lot of the physical effects that a lot of people like, but without a lot of that paranoia. And so I can totally see people pushing, CBD as high as possible. But do you think that paranoia and anxiety as effects or side effects, whatever you want to call them, because I don't even know if they're side effects, but do you think that may have a role in governing how much further people want to go? My own experiences, I've tried some stuff that's been about 30%, and there was no point to it. It was more of like a one-time thing. It wasn't something I enjoyed, just because it was just like a rocket. Just like, well, I'm there, great.
Yeah, it's just a number. And in all reality, it's just a number. I think eventually all those numbers will fade away from most people's sights and ideals, and they'll actually start moving back to an actual medicinal purpose. And because it's not a game anymore 10 years down the road,
Yeah.
It's actual thing, and it's not
business.
Just not a boom type of business where let's make as much money as we can right now. 10 years from now it's going to be just an ongoing business that people actually care about, and
it is.
and it'll spread, and it'll become, we'll probably find more benefits from it for who knows what different type of illnesses and different stuff. So
one of my thoughts is that it's never been, oh god, I hope I don't catch shit for this. It's never been American for a company to care about their customers.
Yeah.
So I know from a business background that having higher numbers, that sells. And I guarantee you, alright, for instance, when I go down to Skunk RX, and by the way, they're out in Rogue River, Oregon. The Mexican place, La Guacamaya, right by it. You gotta go if you're ever in the area. I gotta give them a shout out. The dankest creamy jalapeno hot sauce this side of this place, wherever the fuck I'm at. It is so fire. But every time I've gone to Skunk RX and I kind of talk to the guys and just chit chat, they've told me, whenever they got something that's 30% or above, it's the first thing that sells out. And so whether or not people come and buy it again is a different story, but everybody wants to try it. And so I can only imagine, having some 34% stuff on the shelf, having 40% stuff on the shelf, that's great for making money.
Yeah.
And so I don't see, for marketability and for making profits, why stop? Why stop at 30%? Why stop at 40%?
Yeah, like you're saying with the CBD stuff too, I think we'll end up breeding stuff that's equal CBD to THC, 20%, 20%.
Like really high 101s.
Yep.
Really high, because that's the problem recently. I guess there's been some 15 and 15s, but
I think it'll get to the point where like weed becomes the new morphine. Yeah, non-chemical morphine, pretty much. It's so strong with the CBD and the THC, it's just gonna sedate your ass.
Well, and a lot of these cannabinoids and various alkaloids and whatnot, they have the ability to stimulate your receptors, not necessarily attach, and actually, but stimulate or mimic a lot of these reactions or these chemicals. That's kind of interesting. So, what do you think will happen when we start getting up to like 40, 50%? Do you think it's going to be like just a giant crystal shell over the bud? like a bud encased in glass or something?
That's a good question.
Some of this shit that they're growing indoor, like when they're really pushing things to the limit and everything's dialed in, I
think it depends on the way you grow it. Like you're using veg bloom, I think it's always going to turn out the same look, because all of it does look the same that way. With veg bloom, because it's built to make the bud, it's formulated.
It's dialed in.
Yeah,
that's what its job is. So it does a good job, I guess.
It doesn't judge the strain. It just produces that. So like, I feel like a lot of that type of growing methods, a lot of their buds will just keep looking the same, but the numbers will get kind of higher. I also feel a lot of it will be lost during harvest and trimming, just because if you have a lot of THC everywhere all over your leaves, and like someone's not being careful with it, and you're running through a trim machine, it's bouncing around, you're probably losing 10 or 15% just in the trimming machine.
Yeah, they're just getting a ton of hash and
so
okay.
I don't know if they'll look different, but like it's hard to say. I think the biggest difference in looks will show through in more of the natural way of growing, and or even if you're like pheno hunting, you just have a big field or an indoor grow,
right,
and and there's that 1 out of 1,000 that's just sitting in there, and it's like, oh,
crazy frosty.
Yeah, like or it's just different.
Right.
Like Vader's had strains that doesn't look frostier. It looks just fine. He smells it, but when he smoked it, it was twice as strong.
Really?
He said it put everybody, like, it was like the strongest weed he had smoked in a long time. So looks are not everything at all. From my experience and a lot of other people's experience. So 50% THC could look like there's 0 THC on the outside, but the actual oils inside of the green and then inside of your hairs and inside of all the calyxes, what fuels the actual plant up is what's the real, that's what would be getting you high, and not just the crystals on the outside, what's in the actual bud. Inside of it, not on the outside, inside.
Damn. So with all this, obviously, like, I don't know, something I almost feel like physically with the plant has to change. You mentioned earlier that it would be kind of funny if if at some point you could tap a cannabis plant just like a maple tree, and just have like liquid trichomes and shit come
drain
out.
the syrup out of it.
Yeah, people are
cool.
doing all kinds of crazy stuff now. I'm just impressed with it. But to be able to see what you can do just because you have more trichomes on a plant, shit.
Oh yeah, the plant's super impressive. Think about it. It went from like we were talking, it went from the woods to people's closet under shitty unknown lighting that they had to experiment to even find out what worked.
God, yeah.
And then, so it survived in fucking teenagers' closets and
It's fucking
For
strong.
how long? 100,000 years?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, yeah, exactly.
Like, the plant is super impressive.
So, what about flavors, man? Everybody wants, oh, I need the fucking loudest terps, bro. Don't even talk to me if it ain't terps. Don't even fucking bring it around.
Terps over mold, bro.
Don't even bring it around, bro. So, man, so you know about my experience, man. In Texas, dude, we got only lemon and pine. Occasionally we would get some fire from some people, but it was it was just lemon and pine, and I am so fucking over those flavors that anything lemon pine Jack, it's just I'm over it. I've been burnt out by it. And what's crazy is, you know, my first time coming out west, you know, years and years ago, I remember I got some packs of Afku, and out here everybody was, or out in California everybody was tired of it. Everybody was fucking tired of it. They were willing to let that shit go cheap as balls, and like this shit was fire back there. You know, it seems that every flavor, you know, lemon, orange, berry, pine, this, that, they've all been done before. I think that's one of the reasons why the cookies, I guess, flavor profile and sub profiles coming off that, that's why that's so popular, is it's a brand new flavor that just doesn't exist yet, or hasn't existed in some form. But for some reason people keep coming out with, like, instead of building a new profile, they keep coming out with lemon cookies, orange cookies, berry cookies, pine cookies. And it's like they're just almost, I don't know if you could call it diluting a new profile, or if they're just bored and need something to do, and then they're not actually going back and breeding. You know, there's a million orange cookie crosses, and, you know, not talking down on any of them, because they're all just great. I mean, they're tasty as fuck, but at the same time,
they're not true breeding, they're name breeding.
well, and there's a lot of repetitive flavors. You know, there's a lot of repetitive flavors, and, you know, it's so for if you kind of try to think and quantify the amount of, we'll just say, different crosses or different projects that have been created in order for the cookies to actually come out. You know, like, as we were talking, like, you got to, you know, 10,000 plants to find this fucking winner. If it took, you know, 100,000 crosses between all the breeders in the world to come out with the cookies profile, what do you think the potential of all these different terpenes are, and what, I guess, at what point, or almost how much breeding do you think is necessary for people to actually come up with something that's not repetitive? I mean, do you just have to get lucky and pop 10,000 seeds and find that, you know, so that you can play, I guess, a bigger role in the, you know, instead of popping 10 seeds, and so you're only 10 out of 100,000, if you pop 10,000 out of 100,000, you know, is that all that it takes? Or is there actual skill to it?
It's partial. It's definitely part of it. You can breed something by accident and get lucky. Like, people win the Powerball. Like, it's luck's out there. It's a thing. It happens. But for most people, it doesn't happen very often. Like myself, I just have to work really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
But I think that people will. I think people will get tired of the same old orange cookies, this cookies. I think cookies will get old as fuck. Like, it'll be around forever, just like Jaeger.
Yeah.
And then you'll have your individuals that will like it a lot. But I think people will definitely demand different flavors and want different things. And there is zero reason why we can't have every flavor of weed that we want, whether it's spearmint bubblegum, whether it's cherry, actual cherry pie, like real real flavors, I think we can really.
That's gonna take a lot of breeding, man, to be able to fine tune and be able to, but I think it's possible.
I don't know. Like, I think it's, you say it's a lot of breeding, but at the same time, I don't think it's a lot, just because, with breeding, especially with weed, if you've done any breeding, like research and like how breeding works and how you have different alleles and different stuff, like your chances of different traits are unlimited, completely unlimited. So the more you pop, the more chances of different varieties, the more chance you have at every part of it, because it's going to give you every option.
Right.
You know, you have big, short, or big, tall, like short, fat, big buds, small buds, frosty buds, not frosty buds. It's going to show you all of those so you can recognize what you want to actually see.
Okay.
Because otherwise that would be the one. Oh yeah, this is the one. This is nice. Yeah.
So there's definitely more to it than just popping 10,000 seeds.
Definitely.
I guess that definitely plays a huge role in it.
Yeah, I mean, popping lots of seeds is great. Like, there's nothing wrong. Doing things in numbers is great, as long as you have the mental capability of doing it. If you're topping 10,000 seeds anywhere and you're not walking through all those every day and checking them out, like, you're only half-assed.
Right.
So your product will turn out like, I don't do it that way, but it's everybody's right choice to do it how they want. But like, big numbers can play a big role on how we want to make different flavors and whatnot.
Do you think? So I guess I know one of the bigger issues is acquiring the right cuts so that you can actually sift through those genetics. How obviously that's a gigantic issue for a lot of people. Is there? I don't know. I guess you could just use numbers to kind of go back and search through everything and go find that cut again, couldn't you? Damn. Well, I guess they're just gonna have to try to search for the cut and save some time.
Yeah, it's all work. You just have to you have to have passion for it. Like, if you're just like one of these companies that's coming up just trying to make a buck, like, you're only gonna be around for 5 or 10 years at most. It's just like, you have to have passion for this. Otherwise, it's you're not gonna exist because of all the different changes and. It's just like anything. If you want to do it forever, you have to really love it, because you ain't gonna love money your whole life.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's impossible. Like, and it's,
So, what about? All right. So right now, it seems the big issue is, at least in the cannabis world in general, are cannabinoid specific breeding. Now, obviously high CBD. The big one right now is CBG. And we're talking about how Mickey Kush right now has got, I guess, the strain with the highest CBG in it. I know a lot of people are searching for CBN and just whatever. How difficult, not even how difficult, do you think it's possible to have every flavor in every high cannabinoid profile? So, if you wanted Tropicana cookies in high CBG or high CBN or high CBD, but you want that flavor, do you think that'll be possible? This way you can always have what you want. And I mean, I guess, how do you, is there an easy way to do that, to just raise the CBG or to raise the CBD of a plant and keep that profile? Or do you actually have to spend the time and breed it and go through,
Yep. Yeah, you gotta take the time, do it, go through it. It's possible, and it's really not really not that hard. Like if you're trying to take a, you know, orange or chop a can of cookies and you want to make it CBD, like that's just one cross.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, you cross it to it, get some CBD hemp or whatever, find a male, cross it, and now your work begins. Like just test them out, and only way you know for numbers, if you have those CBD numbers, is by testing it. So if you don't have the money to test it, like you're SOL. Like you won't be able to go down that path other than actually just smoking it and seeing what works for you. But other than that, like you'd have to test everything, then you'd have to keep everything around at the same time so you didn't kill it, so you could, you know, back cross with it and then keep going.
Right.
So there's a lot of work, a lot of work in breeding that people don't realize.
Is it, considering business and the saturation of, you know, cannabis in general, do you think it would be a smart business decision for certain breeders to decide to focus on one cannabinoid or another and then just go down that road of only producing, like, let's say you want wedding cake high in CBG, you want purple Urkel high in CBG, you want fucking blah 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 high in CBG. Would that be a smart avenue? Because if all of a sudden you can like open your doors and you're like, all we carry is this, but we got every fucking profile, and all of a sudden you can differentiate yourself from everybody else, is that worth the time, or do you think it would be better spent creating a new terp profile? I mean, because right now, here's the thing, at least in my eyes, the cannabinoid specific buying demographic is very different than the buying demographic of terpene or high terp cannabis. Usually it's, you know, everybody that wants louder shit tends to be a little bit younger and seems to use it more recreationally, whereas everybody that wants, you know, high cannabinoid stuff, it's usually for a medicinal purpose, but it's not everywhere. And so for business, it seems like it would be smart, but do you dedicate all of your time to that when the market doesn't really exist yet? Or do you invest in the market and you create the market? Just something to think about. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I forgot. That's a good question. Well, really, it depends on the person. It depends on
what they're capable of.
Yeah, what they're capable of, like what their mentality is, who they are as a person. It depends on how they see it. I mean, it depends on if CBG is actually something that's going to sell and that be attractive to other people.
I guess a lot of that relies on educating the customer at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, if you have something high in CBG and nobody knows it, like they're not going to tell the difference. Like, unless they have some type of illness that it helps, and it's like
they've searched it out.
They're like, oh, this helps so much. For your ordinary smoker, like the CBD and THC levels are just like a selling point for like a number. As like same thing with like, it's no different than saying, oh, my beer has 10% alcohol in it. It's all a selling point. You can either have high percentages and like people will buy it so they get more drunk, or they're gonna buy cheap stuff so they can just have quantity of it and then have more to drink all the time.
Right.
And that's how I see weed. It's the same thing. Like that's how people are gonna have to pick what they want to do, is how they want it. Like it's up to them.
Right. Now, what about, okay, so I guess kind of moving in more into the business side of things. There's going to be a difference between, okay, so we'll call this the breeding market. There's going to be a difference between the cultivars that are needed for commercial cultivation and then what are needed for home growers in their microclimate cultivation. So microclimate cultivars versus commercial cultivars. At some point, it seems if companies are going to be just, making cigarette style, like massive cigarette style products, which are great ideas. It's just, they're sold to a different customer. They're sold usually to older folks that are more accustomed to seeing a cigarette opposed to a cone or a joint. A lot of these cigarette companies, they use a blend, that it may rotate depending on what's available and what's in stock. Do you think that for the commercial side of things, a lot of these strains will almost kind of go away and companies will just begin using a blend just to make it so that it's easier to produce, it's whatever's in stock, and this is all they need? And so essentially everybody can monocrop, and then just sell it balls cheap. Do you think that might become an issue ever?
Isn't it already happening?
I guess, yeah, to some extent.
In the way I see it,
yeah.
That's already happening.
I just don't know if, for instance, all these strains are going to die off. And just because, for whatever reason, companies are going to decide what their customers are going to smoke. In the same way that, they basically decide what they get to wear, or what they get to use by creating products and putting them out there. You can see large corporations just deciding to say fuck the culture, fuck all these ultra different strains, and with their minute differences, and just look, we want lemon, we want lime, we want orange, whatever, and then just use a blend, and that's that. And so you'll just have, I think, was it Camel? They did that a while back where they had like orange cigarettes, or I don't fucking know. It was a long time ago. But I guess people are doing that now. Well, what about like for the microclimate cultivars? Because that's something that I personally believe is going to be the future. And I think it's going to be the way that small businesses or small farms stay in business, is by focusing, and I guess a lot of the locals in the area are already doing that, but by focusing on strains that grow great in their areas, so that they can not have to outsource stuff from other people, and everybody can kind of support themselves. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think microclimates, or do you think that strains for the high desert versus the coast versus Alaska? Do you think that any of these are going to be big markets to get into? Like, I guess, do you think it's worthwhile for, let's say, somebody in Virginia to buy some stuff out here and then begin refining it over and over and over again, just so that it produces better in Virginia solely for the sale of Virginia? Or do you think that breeder in Virginia should just breed his own shit and focus on getting his name out, or even just breeding for a different market? I mean, because right now there's a lot of breeders that are out there, and it seems like nobody really has any direction, because this is the first time that a lot of these people have actually gotten into the business space. And so you can find like a niche space, or a place where you can actually gain customers for a specific purpose. Like, for instance, if you were selling tomatoes for spaghetti versus sandwiches, completely different product at the end, or end use, I'm sorry, but it's technically the same product. So if you were to, let's say, find a place with harsh winters and only bred for that area, is that worth more money? Or is that worth more time than just breeding whatever's trendy and moving off that, just because, again, people aren't educated? I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I feel like the microclimate deal will change. I think it will go away. I think all cannabis will get to a point where it's adapted to everything. It's just it don't matter where you fucking live. Like, you plant it, Like, I think we'll get to the point where it's like it don't need nutrients. We've done enough breeding to where it mines its own nutrients on its own just fine. Like, I think we'll get to that point where you can just take a handful of seeds, go out in your yard, throw them out in your yard, let it rain, and that's it. Like, I had a seed do that in my burn pile this year that came from somewhere from some of my seeds. I never watered it. It popped up from the rain. It grew through all the frost and everything, and not watering it for over 6 months.
Damn.
It had no mulch. It had no special living soil. It had regular native soil.
So it was just hardy genetics.
Yeah, it was pure genetics. So like, I really think that like they will all get to where they're like that point. You can just throw them out, throw a little dirt over them, wait for it to rain, and like, you don't have to worry about adding all this cow mag or doing this any special bullshit, because people would have done the breeding to make sure that those plants are the ones that don't need all that shit.
So really, I guess local people should just kind of focus on, or not local folks, but everybody should just kind of focus on refining genetics just to strengthen the genetic pool in general. And
what needs to happen is people need to actually stress test their shit. It's the biggest problem in breeding I see right now is people are popping all these seeds indoor with a goddamn dehumidifier, so you'll never know if it gets PM or not. Like, you have to test them in every situation, otherwise we will only have problems with them in the future. If we test them in every situation like I do, test the males, test the females, test the kids, test everything, because if they can handle it, then those genetic markers get passed on, and then pretty soon that plant can grow itself. And
damn,
like, that's it. And there's no more fucking around with bullshit. Like, no more hydro days in the sense of like you have to buy all this stuff. No, you can go buy a plain bag of cocoa or dirt, put the plant in there, turn on your flood and drain or whatever you're doing, bam, no nutrients.
Yeah, a lot of information is definitely upon us now, and there's really no excuse anymore for
yeah, there's no excuse for, like, and even with pests, like all these pest bullshit problems, like all these have stemmed from all these shitty breeding closet grows.
It's interesting though that a lot of them, and a lot of people just, they believe that, a more sterile environment, a more perfect environment
will produce a better, can produce a perfect, and that's true. There's truth to that. But at the same time, if those strains are not experiencing any stress, any type of outside element, like if you sat inside all day and never seen the sun, and then one day you walked out in the sun, you're gonna get burnt as shit.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like, you'll probably dehydrate and die. Like, same thing with the plants. And this is what we're going through. We're going through plants that have been stuck in a closet, whether it's good breeding or bad breeding. There's no judgment there. It's just these plants have been stuck in a closet or in a basement in artificial light, all this stuff for 50 to 100 years now, or however long it's been. And then now we're trying to revert it back to its state where it came from the woods. And then, because nature, if you ever seen nature, it doesn't fuck around. It knows what to do. If there's too many animals, guess what it does? It kills them. There's not enough food for those animals to survive, so they die.
Right.
And so, like, nature doesn't fuck around compared to us. Nature, nature picks a course and it's not, oh, well, I may do that tomorrow. Or, like, there's no deviance from nature. Nature just does it, and that's it. Like, it don't care if it's life or death. Like, if it has to do it, that's what it needs to be done.
So is I guess this unnatural breeding, is it fucking up nature?
Yeah, it's artificially, that's why there's pest problems. Like, if you go into the woods and you look at, like, yeah, you're going to find pests here or there, but those plants, they die off. The other plants survive. They produce seeds. Those seeds germinate the next year. They regrow. then you have those genetic markers for those plants that can survive the bugs, even if they got half eaten by bugs, and then they produce seeds. Those seeds dropped, like just like humans, like with colds and getting over all these different elements. Like if you weren't exposed to them, and then you just throw it, and then all of a sudden you're exposed to them, like you're screwed.
It's like bubble boy weed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's like being stuck in a bubble your entire life.
And that's what people have done to weed with hydroponics. They've made it so clean and so sterile that no bugs or any life wants to be there other than what they're force feeding.
Right. Wow. Oh shit. Okay, so I guess you can't talk about the future of breeding and to get to this point without talking about the physical evolution of the plant. Okay, so we'll talk about, all right, the first thing really is how will the plant change based on our growing methods, and we're kind of just getting into that. It seems obviously, through breeding and techniques that just because they're through their life not subject to certain conditions, certain real life conditions, that they have problems in other areas. And I don't want to blame this or that, because those are all just some of them may be reasons, some of them may be excuses, but we're past that. We're past that. How do you think some of these plants are going to begin adapting? I mean, if generationally, if they're subject to living soil nonstop, being outdoors again, and now that we as an industry are allowed to come back outdoors and to be full sun and to do this, or to even just have an opportunity to come out here and do it, will IPM programs eventually become irrelevant? Because, okay, so for instance, our property that we're working at, the native wasp population just about governs this fucking place. It's nuts, and every type of wasp and every type of bee has a predator, and they have food, and you can see they take care of shit and then they leave, or they're there eating the sugars or whatever that we're putting down, but you can see them, they'll search out prey and whatnot. Will we need to continue a quote-unquote IPM program, or eventually will our plants be able to ward off russets and broad mites and hemp mites and all these things?
Definitely. I think not only the plants will, but as we get smarter and more people understand living soil, once your soil gets better and better, it attracts good bugs that eat bad bugs. It balances the bad to the good. It has a yin and a yang, and everything survives. And that's what will happen. At least in our case.
Right, exactly.
I don't know about everybody else, but that's what we're doing.
Now, a lot of people there's some interest in this, because obviously with the commercial aspect coming and the future of plants in general, you have to discuss GMO. Now, there's a lot of support for GMOs because it solves a lot of problems. It solves, it increases. So basically, instead of allowing nature to kind of move forward and a plant develop this natural resistance, GMOs you can just get in there and make the resistance happen overnight. Not overnight, but now all of a sudden a plant is resistant to this pest or this type of mold.
Actually, that's false.
Okay,
actually,
what you got?
GMOs don't do that. They don't protect against bugs. GMOs were made because plants could not handle the poison that the people were spraying to keep the bugs off.
Oh.
So plants, they were genetically modified to handle poison so they could get rid of the bugs instead of doing it the right way. Welcome to GMO.
Okay. So with that then, that opens everything up. I mean, it seems like people would do it just for pests in general, just so that they could. Well, actually, I could see them doing both.
In a way, it was for pests
Yeah.
because pests were eating their crops, but then they had to figure out how to protect their crops from the poison because they couldn't figure out any way to protect their crops from the bugs. Instead of going into actual soil life and using the data that they had at the time, it was easier and more efficient as a company to make money off of that way.
Do you think there's a market for doing it or genetically modifying cannabis for specifically for pests or for molds or anything like that? I know there's been some articles about it where a lot of growers are interested in it because it, they don't have to. For them, it's not about spraying; it's about not having to spray. And so, if they can grow something that's, not naturally or genetically modified to be resistant to this or that, that saves them money. Unfortunately, they can only grow that crop, but for some people, there's that. Other people, the fact that the research isn't there to show what its effects are, that's where the issue lies. It's not that people are against it in that sense. It's they're against it if there's no data to prove it, because right now we're at least showing that cannabis isn't harming anybody. Yeah, I mean, like, do you think that there is a market for this, considering the culture? And that's a big deal, because the culture, cannabis doesn't want this shit. The only people that really want it are business people.
Yeah, big business people.
Yeah, that's the only people that really...
I don't think it'll happen.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't. I really do.
I'm sure that somebody might try it or something, but yeah, all of us, even the hydro growers, we don't like GMO stuff. It's proven that GMO stuff gives you cancer and all this different stuff, whether it's the poison on it or whether it's the actual effect of the DNA being changed.
Mm-hmm.
We all know it's not natural, plain and period.
Yeah.
So I don't...
Especially with the movement going back to being natural, living soil, working in synchronicity. Yeah. I guess there's no real room for that in the future of cannabis. Well, hopefully.
Not unless you're like super big money. If you're a small farm and you're a normal person, like no-till, like not buying soil every year and nutrients every year that's a lot of money that you get to save.
Well, and I guess it's good for some places where they're required to tell you if something is GMO, considering cannabis being an agricultural crop and hopefully falling under those same standards. But in other places, they don't have to tell you. And so you almost wonder when cannabis happens into that place or that extent, it seems like there would be a market for it. And so that's where I'm...
It definitely could be...
It's scary to think about.
Yeah, it could be
like that it'll be on the market, the legal market.
Yeah, like it could just... That could form into just like another Marlboro company type deal. Mm-hmm. Like they have so much money that they've put away billions of dollars for people who are going to die and sue them so their ass is covered later down the road. Like that's big money business. Like people who create pills, they put away billions of dollars because they know people are going to have side effects from it. So when they get sued, they're like, "Oh, that's in our contract. It's already taken care of. We don't lose any money. We're still gaining it." So I think that will definitely happen, but I think there will be enough smaller, more, open-minded people that won't want that type of stuff. Don't want to support somebody who already has billions of dollars. Like, what's the point in supporting, Walmart when they already make billion, trillion dollars a year, just because you saved $1. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm broke as fuck. I don't do that.
Right.
It's worth not doing that. And I feel like that's how people are kind of trending. Like, people are wanting more information about their products that they're buying, whether it's weed or milk or butter or eggs. I feel like, the information level has gone up.
It has. Unfortunately, this is going to sound weird. There's some people that can't afford to have the information. As in, like, if they know what's in their food, they're not going to buy it, and they can't afford to not buy it because of the money that they actually have. And so, unfortunately, like, some people are, I hate saying it, but they're willfully ignorant because they don't have the money to, you know, eat better or eat food that, for instance, isn't going to spoil in a day or two or a couple days, and you know, just whatever. But so on a slightly happier note, man, we've been getting a lot of pink pistols this year. Like, a lot of stuff that we've been growing, it's got pink pistils. A lot of stuff has got orange pistils. Some has got some purple. You think we can get some blue in there, or some gold, or, I mean, what is it going to take to bring other colors to the pistol game? You know,
it's going to take conscious awareness. Think about, okay, like a couple years ago, back when I was just starting to get into this game, there's about 1 or 2 people had plants with pink pistils. That's all you ever seen. 1 or 2. Everybody was super attracted to it. Oh my god, look at them pistils. Look at Green's, like, you know, Green Sources kind of started it. And now everybody's like, oh, those pink pistils. And even me, they're cool as fuck. But now I'm growing strains that I've never knew had pink pistils, and now they have pink pistils. So is it the conscious awareness that we're wanting certain things and the plant knows it and is changing on its own to attract us?
Give me blue, give me blue, give me blue, give me blue, give me blue.
Yeah.
I want blue.
Like, who says that's not a part of DNA, like, change, like, breeding?
Oh yeah. Well, and we'll have to make the whole consciousness of the plant thing, because that was a really good conversation yesterday. Sometimes I just need to set up fucking microphones in the house and just kind of talk occasionally. You know, record that shit next time. But no, that's interesting. So you think that it's through breeding, or just through our desire to have pink pistols, that pink pistols showed up in the genetic pool?
Yeah.
You think, okay.
I mean, there's been proof that if, like, enough people put their focus on something, that it changes without being scientifically explained. And your intentions have, without trying to sound like some crazy,
no, fucking say it,
it's
dude.
like, no, it's just like intentions, like,
they change the outcome of things. Yeah, like that whole
hugely.
like observing the experiment alters the outcome. Yeah.
Like, I've seen people who grow weed with Miracle-Gro, and it sucks, and it makes you paranoid, and it makes, like, it's terrible weed. They do it for money. They're not doing it because they love it, compared to where I've seen people who absolutely love just growing. Yeah, they might sell it. Who cares? But, like, they're not doing it just because of the dollar. They're doing it because they enjoy the process. They're out there checking on their plants. Like, the people who are doing it for money will sell moldy buds and different stuff.
God,
so
yeah.
like, I feel like your intentions have so much to do with it that they can almost create a new strain. Like, I feel like I've like from, like, Grill Glue Bubblegum, like, it's taken me 4 years to find it, but without going through those, you cannot see what you have so you can see what you want at the end of it. So if I didn't start that, I would never had the imagination to see what I wanted. So
you don't know what you're looking for.
By popping those seeds, it's making me think and making me be conscious about what I am actually looking for.
Okay.
And then eventually, I feel like if you put enough work into it and enough thought, like, it happens, and it did happen. So I feel like if you want to create a blueberry strain, it don't matter what fucking strain you start with. Start with Jack Herrera. Like, if you just do it and you grow it and grow it and grow it, and even if you have to breed with it, I feel like it's all intentional. It's all, like, for all we know, the plant is infecting us and it's making us do all this.
I totally can see that, man. I can totally see that.
Like, is cannabis actually, are we breeding it, or is it breeding us?
It's definitely changing every single person associated with it.
It's changed my entire goddamn life.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's in a weird way, it's forced me to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, I've tried to do other things, and I'm a mental wreck. I am a complete disaster. Like, there'd probably be no way I could work a 9 to 5 anymore. I don't know if it's because of the plant or what it is, or I'm not on pills anymore, or in that era of my life, or what it is, but like it's completely changed me, and it's always pushed me down this same path. It's, oh, I tried to veer from marijuana. Oh, wait, nope, you just went to side street that reconnected to it. And it was like, oh, and I've just made all these conscious thoughts that, like, oh, this is happening, and I remembered those, and the next time it happened, I go, oh, I remember. So, like, I feel like it's changing us almost just as much as it's changing it, or we're changing it.
So I mean, like, it's a synergistic relationship. We're working together towards something. So
definitely.
So as long as we keep growing it, and we want blue pistols, it'll give us blue pistols.
And to go even, yeah, definitely. And if we go even, it has to be a good reason too. You want it that way. Like, if your ego is just playing tricks on you, and I just want blue.
Oh, right. No, I don't give a fuck about the blue. I just think that shit would be cool because I haven't seen, like, a lot of the pictures I've been taking, just because of the height of the hemp. The background has always been the sky, and so it's in the background of all these the pictures of the hemp, it's always blue sky, and so for me it's just blue. When I was younger, my favorite color was baby blue, like Michael Jordan, North Carolina type of shit, and it was like, that was just it. You're a boy, you like blue.
Yep, that was mine too.
Yeah. And it just seemed like, oh shit, pink, damn, that's cool. Red, damn, all of these are always on the red side of the spectrum. Let me get something different. So that's why I was just curious. I mean, if there was any actual way to get blue out. So we'll try this whole conscious interaction, which was actually a little topic on the last thing, on the ego of the grower. So going to the next one, something that we kind of talked about when with the other plant was heavy feeders, and it seems like with business getting involved, having plants that are heavy feeders, that's not economical. Nobody wants to spend more money growing a fucking plant.
Yeah. And get the same outcome.
Yeah, and get the same outcome is having plants that don't eat a lot, or in the case of dry farming, or places where there's a drought. Are those going to be new areas where the plant's going to have to evolve? It's going to have to eat less and drink less. Or do you think our, abundance of whatever is going to, you think that'll counteract it, and we'll just be, well, who cares about heavy feeding? You can't afford to grow it. And that bullshit come out, because that that's gonna happen. Oh, you can't afford to grow. You can't afford this shit. And do you think the ego will take over, or do you think do you think this is even a conversation? Do you think people care about light feeding plants? I mean, dry farming is a big deal now, especially with Nevada. A lot of other places where there's just not a lot of water.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna happen, because there's no reason not to. Like, it's just less resources that you have to use, so why not?
Is it worth, again, bringing this to business, is it worth a breeder focusing on that, or should the genetics just be that fucking strong, and when we get there, we get there?
Just depends on who you are. I believe, I guess. I mean, if you're wanting to make this, like, more power to you. Like, there's
well, there's just so many different avenues, and I guess that's where, like, my excitement and my interest comes from, is just figuring out ways to not be a fucking sucker in this business and get tied up in the, we have only the same products. Like you don't, and that's why I keep asking these questions and bringing it back to business. I want everybody that's listening to know that, you're on a How to Start a Cannabis Farm podcast. We're trying to make sure that you have the information to make profits in this industry that's moving forward. So if it feels right, it feels right, right? Okay.
Yeah, why wouldn't, we're a company, why wouldn't we want to save money?
Oh, I agree. I just didn't know if it was worth anybody's time opposed, I guess if you have the space and you've got, an extra greenhouse, fuck it, dedicated to it maybe, but, if you only have one greenhouse, if you're starting out and you're only growing in a tent, or maybe not a tent, but, wherever, is it worth that?
Depends on your passion. It was worth it for me. My first time not the first time I grew, but once I actually learned how to grow a plant, that's when I started breeding. It was automatic. It wasn't I never made the conscious decision should I breed or should I not breed. It was I'm doing this, period. So I don't know about other people if they're gonna want to do it or not, because it's a lot. I've sacrificed many harvests to where I could be smoking on some good weed right now, but it's full of seeds. Full of seeds. I gave up all that shit for just to have better genetics, just so I could grow better plants, not to make money off of or anything. So it's really gonna depend on that specific person who's oh yeah, I think it's cool to save money. I think it's cool to do these certain things.
It's a huge market right now that doesn't exist yet because the industry is just starting, and man, dude, it's crazy. So the cost of growing a plant has always been associated with the medium or the soil, the nutrients. It's never been associated with the plant and its feeding capability or capacity. Yeah. It's never been associated with it being a heavy feeder or a light feeder. And that's, as a business person, I think that would be a phenomenal place to just, bro, we may have to, just keep an eye on all of our plants. And if there's any that are, light feeders, we'll just mark those, keep those aside specifically for that. But as far as dedicating everything to it, maybe if you live in Nevada or Arizona and that's where you live, maybe.
Just depends on how you want to do things.
Yeah. What about getting two different types of nug on the same plant without grafting? You know how somebody can have two different color eyes? Yeah. Or is that possible, you think? I don't know. I'm because as we move forward with the plant, there's been a lot of mutations I've been seeing. And it just seems like those mutations, whatever works for society or whatever whatever's being interacted with, that's what's going to be interesting. Grafting has been a big deal, even though it really hasn't. People have been successful with it, but nobody really cares to try it. With plant counts being an issue, how would you do that? How would you? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Maybe whoever.
I think it's probably possible. Your top nugs are different ratios than your bottom nugs. So just look at, here's a really good example. Look at dogs. All dogs stem from a wolf. Mm-hmm. Now look, how in the fuck do you think you got a Chihuahua out of a wolf?
Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it?
It's possible. He went from a man-eating thing that they had to stop a war. I forget which war. It was one of the Cold Wars, I believe. Mm-hmm. They literally, I think it was Russia and somebody else. I don't think it was America. But Russia and somebody else were in a war, and so many people were getting slaughtered by wolves that they had to stop. Well, okay, we're truce on the war. Let's kill the wolves, and then we'll go back to war.
Holy
and that's
shit.
What happened. And
Damn.
now people are I'm not gonna get into the wolves. That's
Damn.
breeding. So wolves went from a wolf like that was killing humans so much that we had to stop war to a chihuahua. Now, why couldn't a plant do any of all that? I mean, look, you got bananas and you got apples, completely different. You got grapes, you got blackberries. Why can't you have oranges and
on the same plant? Yeah. Why the fuck not?
Why not? Just because it hasn't happened?
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true.
Because if you, back in the day, during that Cold War, if you're like, dude, check out my chihuahua, they're like, there's no such thing as a chihuahua, you're fake. So, because it didn't exist. And then over breedings and breedings in 50, 60 years or more, bam, we got chihuahuas, we got
fucking weird,
all this different stuff. So 50, 60 years from now with cannabis and fruits and all that stuff.
Speaking of fruits, and this is basically the last thing that I got, man. When are we gonna have like a cannabinoid fruit that we could like fucking bite into and get stoned? Is is there a way to make, and you could even tie this in with the very beginning, is there a way to make our weed like 30% with just dripping fucking just terps, and you could just like bite into it where it would be so delicious that, I mean, is there a way to get it delicious?
I do know one thing.
Will we have to start eating it?
Back in the day, everybody used to compost. It was mandatory that you had to grow hemp. So all of our compost, all that different stuff was fed to the hogs, it was fed to the horses, it was fed to the cows, it was fed to our fields, it was fed to our everything. So if you bought an apple, or you bought bacon, or you bought beef, or you bought eggs, it all had CBD in it.
So we just got to start feeding every...
So eventually, once we when people pull their heads out of their butts pretty much, and like actually start using this plant for actual nutrients, the whole plant, the whole bud, leaf, everything. Once we start utilizing the plant in that way, other than just to create income or desired effects,
right,
we will learn that it has all the potential we need. We don't need anything but that plant.
So maybe if you were growing apples, feeding a fertilizer rich in cannabinoids might infuse that, or composting that in eventually could infuse that into the apples.
I believe so. Well, it's already been proven.
Yeah,
it's already happened with CBD, and CBD is not much different THC, so why couldn't it?
Damn. You need to get that fucking plum tree planted, man.
Yeah, it's
shit.
It's wide open. It's completely wide open. People just don't. They're just blinded. They're blinded by either money or this or just hype, and they don't see the true value in genetics, how it can really change the world.
Well, the high is difficult to get past. Like if you think about, when people first start smoking, you have to build the tolerance enough to almost get past the high to even start tasting weed. Like you don't even get to taste weed until you can almost, just like deal with that one hit and not be fucked up for the whole day.
That's where that fruit would be nice.
That shit would be great. Well, and even
anybody who didn't want to smoke it.
Dude, I'm starting to like, I've been thinking I want to get away from smoking. Even though I've been smoking forever, I want to get away from smoking and only edibles and tinctures, because I kind of want to have my lungs back. Like, but at the same time, I love smoking flowers so fucking much that I guess what I'd like is more alternatives than $20 gummies.
Yeah.
And they have some other stuff out there, but I want something that's natural. I'd like to have food.
Yeah, it'd be much nicer to go to
like a salad, dude, and the greens are actually...
Yeah, you could go to your local place to get whatever you're getting. Oh, I want to go get an apple. Go get it. It's not. No, you don't have to go to dispensary. Like that's where I know it'll change. It'll change from where we have all these dispensaries to where it'll be in stores, and then you'll be able to get it at your local market.
Watch, I bet somebody starts injecting fucking fruit with CBD.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Well, man, I appreciate sitting down and talking with me about the future of breeding. This is Golden Hill Grower with GH Genetics. If you haven't listened, GHG Genetics. Sorry, I fucked that up last time. If you haven't listened to the other one, we got breeding.
Golden Hill Grower Instagram.
Golden Hill Grower at Instagram. You got anything you want to say to anybody else about moving forward with breeding? I mean, as we move forward with all this, there's a lot of catching up for young folks to do, and a lot of people that are just starting out. Any recommendations on how they should plan their future and what they should focus on regardless of what we talked about?
Yeah, just I think you should just have fun with it. Like, growing should be fun. Like, it gets very serious nowadays with people saying, because people think, oh, you're growing the wrong way, or you're doing this wrong, or you're doing that wrong. Like, it's just growing this plant is an experience. So just experience it. Have fun with it. Don't put expectations on. Unless you're willing to give up your life for it, don't make it your life, because it will take your life. Period. Like, it will. It's one of those things that if you get into it, it's one of those rabbit holes that you'll never get out of, depending on person.
Damn.
So be careful.
That's some deep shit, bro.
Yeah.
That's some deep shit. It's a deep game, man.
It is.
It's a deep game. You gotta have a life raft in this bitch. Well, thank you for listening to How to Start a Cannabis Farm. We'll be back with another episode at some point about some shit.